Hey guys, Parker here from South Anna Farm. The other day we started paying attention to some weather that was going to be moving through our area, and we looked at the weather system today, and it looks like tomorrow we're going to be getting quite a bit of snow and some potentially ice. As you can imagine, that changes up things drastically as far as how we take care of our animals here on the farm. So come follow along, and we're going to show you how we prepare. Can you stop for just a second? I'm talking to them. We're going to show you how we prepare for winter weather here on the farm. So let's start with here in the chicken run. We added this roof here last year, and it's been an absolute saving grace for us. Before, we just had chicken wire that was running over the top of it, and basically snow and rain would fall in here and make a complete mud mess. The other thing is when it snowed, we'd have to come in here and kind of shovel out an area for the chickens to walk on because they didn't like walking on the snow. They'd actually would just stay in the chicken coop the entire time. So that's been a saving grace here as far as us not having to come in here and manage this. It's covered. We don't have to worry about it. What we do is we do come in here and we put down some wood shavings just to kind of give it some buffer because the ground still does get a little wet from the sides, and also it gets cold. So the wood chips kind of layer it a little bit and insulate the floor and gives them some protection from the ground. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the water situation here in the chicken run. We've tried all sorts of different types of things that you can get at the store that require you to use electricity. We've tried non-conventional methods that don't require electricity. The best thing that we found that works for us is just putting water in basically a regular livestock bowl. They're not hard plastic, they're more of like a rubber. And when the water freezes in them, they're really easy to flip over and knock all of the ice out of. And then we just fill them right back up, of course, after rinsing them out. That's what we use here. You may have something that works better for you, or if you're trying this out for the first time, maybe just try some different options. We did, and this is what we found that works best for us. So we're going to throw down some pine shavings real quick. We don't use the fine stuff. You can. We've used pellets before, pine pellets. We found that they just ate them, so we don't use those anymore. But we just get the big flaky shavings and we'll throw them down. It's not an exact science. We just get enough to cover the area, and it's not beautiful, but it's functional. So we'll throw those down and then we'll move on to the next thing. So real quick, let's talk about water, because we need to water the chickens. This is called a frost-free hydrant, and basically what that means is there's a valve in here, a stem that goes all the way down and goes down to the ground below the frost line. When we put this water system in a couple of years ago, we did this because we were running garden hoses across the yard, and it was always a pain because we had to pick them up every time we wanted to mow the grass or do anything, and it just aesthetically didn't look nice. So we took the time and we invested the money to run all of the water lines under the ground below the frost line and brought it to where this yard hydrant is right here. So basically this goes all the way down below the frost line, and this valve right here, when you pick this up, it opens up the stem and allows the water to come around that valve, comes up through and then comes out the spigot there. That's how this works. Water's not supposed to sit in here, so when you close this valve, there's a little wheat pole underneath at the very bottom underneath of the frost line, and that's where all the water drains out. So this is called, again, a frost-free hydrant. In the wintertime, it's really nice because, again, we have our water right here, And when we were running them in the garden hoses across the yard, the garden hose would always get frozen and we wouldn't be able to use them. So we were having to use buckets of water or buckets to transfer water back and forth from the house to where the animals were. So this has been a godsend to us having this out here. But the problem is the garden hose is still the same. We still run into the same problems with that. You can get these backflow preventers, and basically this will attach onto here. And the whole idea here is that the water will not travel back up through, whatever's left in the hose will not travel back up through. We've, a couple times, we've actually left the garden hose inside of the water buckets or inside the water troughs. And because of the way physics works is, unless there's an air pocket in there, basically that water is going to travel all the way back up and it's going to drain out. And we've actually come back to empty water troughs because it drained all the way through the frost hydrant. So, or the frost-free hydrant. So that's what we got these for. The other thing is we didn't want water to get caught in here somewhere, and then if it freezes and cracks the metal. So we put these on here, but we started finding them that they weren't working all that great, and we were actually still getting frozen water in here from what was backing up from the garden hose. So a little tip, if you guys have these or you guys have garden hoses attached to your spigots outside on your house, is take them off, because that water, as it freezes, it will expand and travel all the way back up that hose and go into whatever it's coming out of and potentially damage it. So we always disconnect our hoses from the frost-free hydrants. The other thing we do is we actually walk our garden hose out when we're done with it. If you look over here where we have the garden hose wound up on top of the holder here, the water actually, unless you get this hose completely off and lay it flat, all of that water is going to sit down in here. So the water won't be up here at the top, but it'll still be down here at the bottom. Well, when you go to hook this back up and you go to turn the water on, basically you have all of this is frozen and the water's not going to come out. So in the wintertime, we actually don't even leave it wound up like this. We'll leave it laying straight on the ground in here, and we'll walk it out when we're done using it. And what that does is it gets all of the water out of the hose, because as the hose goes up, the gravity pulls it down and it drains it out completely. We do that and we leave it alone, and it's been working for us ever since. The other thing which would be a good idea is if you're getting a lot of freezing rain or something that's going to potentially get this wet and then it's going to freeze, these threads right here, if you're planning on using them, they can be kind of difficult to work with if there's a lot of ice caked on them. So if you're getting freezing rain or something and you're worried about not being able to use this or get the garden hose on it, a good idea is just to bag it up. Just take a plastic bag from Food Lion or wherever you go do your grocery shopping at, and get this thing bagged around here, and either use a rubber band or some tape or something like that just to secure it. You can even take the ends of the plastic bag and just tie them down, will work as well. But leave a little bit of a space here, because as this thing, if you have a small leak on here, if this thing is up, if the bag is up tight to the end of the spigot, then it's going to backfeed and that will freeze. So leave a little bit of room in there just in case it does get water in there from the rain, or if it does leak by, it'll allow all that water to sit down in the bottom and you won't have this all frozen up. A lot of the times, if we're in a hurry, that's kind of a pain, so we'll just use water in buckets. We'll just fill the buckets up here, and we'll go in there and we'll empty it. If we got to do something big, like fill up one of the water troughs, then that's a different story. We may have to actually use the garden hose, and that's the time when we would hook it up and go through all that trouble to do that. But if it's just taking care of the chickens like we're getting ready to, it's below freezing right now. I don't want to do it. I don't want to mess with the garden hose and have to run it all out. So we're just going to fill up buckets, and we're going to take it in there and take care of those chickens real quick. Now, the next thing we need to do is make sure that our livestock guardian dog, Birdie, is squared away. She is the protector of the animals, and she patrols the ground, so we definitely want to make sure that she's squared away and that she can do her job. We built this doghouse for her a little while ago. In fact, I'll post the video up here in the corner. You guys can check that out. But on the side of it, we built a little hatch that we could take the side off and put some straw bedding in there and pull it out to clean it. We built this thing, and I'm not going to say that she doesn't use it, but she prefers to hang out with the sheep and sleep with the pigs and that's good for her. But just in case she does need it, as you can see, some of the straw has been pulled out. We'll put some straw in there so that she's squared away. If she wants to go in there, she can. If she wants to stay out in the snow and hang out with the sheep, then she can. But we'll go ahead and throw some straw in here and make sure that she's squared away for that. So the next thing there is to do is to take care of these guys. These are our pigs. And for the most part, they're pretty much low maintenance. They really don't require a whole lot, obviously, other than food and water. But with their little house that we have built for them, we want to make sure that they're going to be nice and warm. They'll come out during the snow and they'll move around in their pinned up area. But we want to make sure that where they're going to be spending a majority of their time in that house, that they're going to be warm and that they're going to be comfortable. We put straw in there, but they'll eat the straw. So what we do is we put down a bedding of wood chips like we did in the chicken run, put that down, and then we'll throw the straw over top of it. We did a video not too long ago about straw versus hay. I'll post it up here in the corner. You guys can check that out. But we use here on the farm, we use straw for all of our bedding because of the insulation properties. But again, if we didn't put any kind of wood shavings in there, the pigs would just eat it all. So we're not reserved with it by any means. We throw it in there because they like getting up underneath of it and hiding under it. So we'll do that real quick and make sure that these guys got food and water, and we'll move on to the next one. I know it looks like it's just kind of thrown in there, but they literally love it. They'll just go in there and they'll get up underneath of it, as you can see, and this is like a playground to them. Can you say hi to everybody? Now, we do the same thing that we do with the chickens with their water. It's super easy. We just dump it out. Again, when the ice gets in there, it comes right out, and we just fill it back up. If we need to rinse them out, we'll rinse them out. But if not, we fill these things up. We find that these two work perfectly good for the amount of water that they need. So that's all we do. So next up is our alpaca Olaf. Can you please not bite me? Go away. I'm trying to talk to these people. Now, next up to talk about is our alpaca Olaf. For the most part, Olaf really isn't that high maintenance. He does require, stop biting me. He does. So next up is our alpaca Olaf. Olaf really doesn't require a whole lot. He's already got a shelter that he can get up underneath of. That's where we put his hay. We give him a little bit of green, but for the most part, the majority of his diet is high quality hay. We give him water through a bucket just like we do some of the other animals, and I'll show that to you here in just a minute. But he pretty much has everything he needs. We'll just top off his hay, make sure that there's a good bedding of straw underneath of that shelter, and he should be ready for the winter, right? As you can see, the water buckets that we have here with the alpaca are removable, so we can pick them up and take them to the water spigot. We're not that far away from the yard hydrant, but if we just need to top them off, we'll just bring a bucket over here and top them off. Again, when it's frozen outside, it makes things a lot easier that you're not just having to use a garden hose. We just use the buckets. We don't have that many animals to take care of really here, so it just makes things more simple. Another thing real quick, just kind of a helpful tip. You see that there's ice that sets around at the top here and around on the sides. You could come in and you could take this whole thing out and there's water underneath of it. A lot of times what people will do is this will sit at the top and people will knock a hole down in there just to give the animals access to that water that's underneath. What happens though is at nighttime or later on during the day, that will freeze back up, and when you start compounding ice on top of ice, it actually gets harder and harder to break up. The easy thing to do is, just like I did right here, is take this thing out and get rid of this completely. I know it seems like you would want to keep it in there because it's just water, but it's going to create more problems. Open that back up and allow them to get access to that water, and then when you come back out and it freezes again, you're ended up with the exact same situation you were here. You knock a hole in it, you pull this out, and you just keep doing that again and again. But if you leave this ice in there and you break it up and you leave those big chunks, it will create problems for you, and it has created problems for us. That's what we found works best for us. It's really a big thing when we get over to the water trough, and I'll talk about that over there. Now, we have our sheep in here because they're getting close to lambing. So they're pinned up in these little areas. That way, if they do have a baby in the middle of the snowstorm, which obviously would be a recipe for disaster, we don't have to worry about that. We also have a small little monitoring system that we can, between checks, when we come out here and check on them, if for some reason there was a lamb or something like that, we'll be able to tell from inside of the house. So for them, for the most part, we just need to make sure that their bedding is squared away, make sure we put down another layer of straw, and then we'll make sure that their hay's topped off. I'll show you what we use for their hay, which has been working out awesome because we used to just throw it on the ground. Now we have these actual feeders that are designed to keep so they don't waste as much. So we'll make sure that those are topped off, and we do give them a little bit of grain just to keep them happy, and we'll top off their waters. So let's go do that real quick. So this is the hay feeder that I was talking about. This thing has saved us a lot of money because we haven't had a lot of wasted hay on the ground. The holes in here are basically big enough for them to be able to stick their mouth in there or their teeth and pull out whatever hay they want. And a lot of it's not just dropped on the ground and gone to waste. So we use these. We basically top them off probably every 3 days. We can fit half of a square bale in here at a time. And it has made things a lot more manageable, and we've saved a lot more time here on the farm taking care of these guys. So again, with their water, same thing. I could just knock a hole in here and allow them to get access to get whatever water they need out of it. But that's going to create problems in the long run because as it goes on, again, like we said before, it's going to compound the problem, and the ice is going to get harder and harder and harder to break out. So the best thing to do is just pop off this layer right here, throw this out. We can clean out whatever little bits of flake of straw or hair in here. This is pretty clean water, if you can see my hand all the way down at the bottom. So I'm really not worried about taking this out and replacing it. Now, if there are feces or whatever gets in there, it needs to be cleaned out, then we'll go ahead and do that. So, but for the most part for this, we're just going to top these off. Like I said before, we give them about half a bale at a time, and that'll last them about 3 days. Because it's getting ready to snow, I don't anticipate us not being able to get into where we store the hay, but we threw an extra bale up here just in case. That way we don't have to walk all the way out there around the building, and it's all right here. So that's up there. The other thing we have down here, we do have some heat lamps in here to provide some extra warmth during the winter months too for any lambs that come out. Usually they will huddle up over here in this little area. It's nice, it's protected from the wind, and we'll drop some extra straw down there to keep them nice and warm. So our sheep that we have out here, our ram and our other ewe, Anna, we really don't have to do a whole lot for them. They have a full range of the pendant area that we have over here. We give them hay. They have full access to a hay bale that we keep covered up. And I'll show you guys in another video how we have that set up. It's actually really cool. We've come a long way from having to feed them square bales and having to come out every single day and give them hay. So that's a really cool setup. We'll show you guys that in another video. But for the most part, the only other thing we got to do is just make sure that they have water. We give them a little bit of grain, just like the other sheep, just to kind of keep them happy. So let's go look at their water situation. I'll talk a little bit more about that water trough. Now, for our sheep, we use a water trough. This particular one is a lot lower to the ground to allow them to get to it. Some of the other ones that you may see, they're a little bit taller, but the downside is they don't hold as much water and they freeze faster. The plus side is they can obviously get access to the water. The other thing that's nice about these is they're easy to clean out. The bigger stock tanks, the metal ones or the plastic ones that you may see that are made out of the same material as this, those are a lot bigger and a lot more cumbersome. If they're completely full of water and they're really nasty, you can almost never even get that thing tipped over to get it all out, to get all that water out to clean it. So these are nice because they're a little bit more manageable. But when it comes time for the winter months, that is one downside. The water in here freezes a lot faster because obviously there's less water. But what we do with that is we have a metal pole that we come in here and we bust up the chunks of ice. And like I said before, we pull those chunks of ice out of there because if not, they're going to create problems for us later on in the future. They do make metal tanks that are this size, and if you do have a metal tank, you can get these tank heaters. There's basically blue piece on the top. This is the floater, and then on the bottom, these are the coils that heat up the coils and keep the water from freezing. There's a thermostat in here, so it's not on all the time. It's just above, keeps the water just above freezing. But you have to have electricity for that too, so that is another downside. We don't use that in here, and you probably shouldn't use this in a plastic or Rubbermaid container like this. Don't ask me how I know that, but they don't go well together. So for this, because we don't have a metal tank, we don't use this anymore. We do have other metal tanks that we will use this in, bigger stock tanks that we use for the cattle. But for this, we just put the water in there, and when it freezes up, we break it up, or we'll just dump it out and fill it up with new water again. The last thing that we need to just put somewhere is a snow shovel. And I know that seems like common sense, but the problem is out here with our doors and some of the gates that go into the pens are really low to the ground. And if it snows anything over 6 inches, well, we're not going to be able to get in there. The other nice thing is if we need to clear out a spot for one of the animals to stand where their feet aren't in the snow the entire time, we can do that with this. So I'd rather not have this tucked away down into the shed somewhere. I'd rather have it out in the open and over here by the animals where we need it, just in case we got to quickly get in there for whatever reason. Well, that wraps up everything here. We're done getting everything ready for this potential winter weather. I appreciate you guys sticking around with us and hanging out. If you guys do something different at your farm or at your place, or maybe you just have a suggestion about the way we've done something that we could do better, we'd really love to hear more back from you. If you could leave a comment down below and let us know. we would really appreciate it. Also, if you could hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, it'll help the channel grow and allow us to bring more videos like this to you. But until then, hope you guys stay safe. We'll see you later.